This episode of FilmRiot is brought to you by Domain.com.
Today on FilmRiot, we rewind to a time that is in the past.
Wait, really?
Shut your mouth. Welcome to FilmRiot, the show that takes mystery and the effects and techniques going through your favorite Hollywood films. I'm your host, Ryan Conley, and I know what you're thinking. Another rewind episode? Well, let me address that. I know that FilmRiot has not quite been to the level that we want it to be. Probably not to the level that you want it to be either, but you guys have been awesome enough to stick with us and support us through all of that. As we have been saying, we have been working behind the scenes to try to do some stuff, line things up to do bigger and better. And when you're trying to reach for the next rung of the ladder as a very small company with a very small team, it's kind of hard to juggle everything. So FilmRiot hasn't quite been to the level that we want it to be. But I think this year is the year that you're going to start seeing the fruits of that labor. We're even doing this rewind episode because we're working on a project that we're releasing in March that is probably going to be one of the coolest things that we have ever done. We're partnering with DJI on that. So you're going to be seeing that very, very soon, including some other stuff that we're doing for the rest of the year, including a lot more sketches on FilmRiot and other awesome stuff that you'll be hearing about very soon, including really great stuff that's going on our store. So again, thank you for supporting us, sticking with us. It is about to be a pretty great year, I think. But now, as for today's episode, I know it's not Halloween, obviously, but I always thought this was a really fun way to make your stuff look pretty cinematic without too much difficulty. So put your episode watching goggles on because we about to pop this bitch. Now, to make a Halloween sort of background, you're gonna need the moon, check, and some ominous clouds, of course, check. I found this picture on the internet and then just separated the clouds from the moon later on, which we'll talk about in a minute. The main thing is that I didn't want the whole thing to be a picture. I wanted it to be my actual neighborhood. So the first thing I did was to get some footage looking out of my door from where Brian would be standing later. Now I'll bring my footage into After Effects, place my shot of the neighborhood in, and then add the picture of the sky above that. Now, I need to separate my clouds from the rest of that image so I can move them independently. So I will mask around the clouds until I have this, then I will pre-comp this image. Now double click the pre-comp so we can go into it, and in composition settings, I'm going to triple the width of this comp size. Now I will duplicate my clouds twice and position them to fit all the way across the comp. This will take a little bit of finessing to make it look like one image that's not repeating itself, but with a little bit of time, you're gonna get something good like this. Now back in the main comp, we're gonna duplicate our main video layer so that we can do some sky replacement. Now I'm not gonna go through how to do the sky replacement step by step since I've already showed this technique in this episode here. It's super duper simple and I did it the exact same way. But now with that created, I will place that layer above my clouds. Then I will set the cloud layer to luma track matte. And now we get rid of the sky and we can see right through to my clouds. So next, I will drop in another instance of my sky picture, place it under the clouds, duplicate my track matte layer, place that above the second sky layer, and set that sky to use the track matte as well. Now, scale and position the sky to fit your liking. Like the clouds, this is gonna take some finessing, but with some effort, you're gonna get something delightful.
I brought ice cream.
No. Oh, wait.
Now with my sky and clouds placed, I'll duplicate my cloud layer along with its track matte layer, and then I'll scale the lower cloud layer up a bit and move it so it doesn't look like a copy of the first. And now it's time to make these clouds move. To do this, I'm going to set a position point at the start of my comp, then move to the end and drag my top cloud layer across. Once I get the speed I want by some trial and error, I will do the same to the back cloud layer, but I'm going to have these move a bit slower to make it seem like they are more in the distance, which will help give the shot some depth. Next, I'll add a bit more of illusion of depth by slightly simulating depth of field. First, I'll add fast blur to my sky layer, and once I have a number I'm happy with, I'm going to copy and paste that to the back cloud layer so that it matches the sky. Then I'll add fast blur to my second cloud layer and blur this one slightly less than the one behind it. Finally, I'll add blur to my neighborhood layer, which I will blur the least since it's supposed to be the closest to the camera.
Josh's crap, take 8.
And the last thing I'm going to do before we take a quick break is to add a color correction to our neighborhood layer to give it a nighttime sort of look that will match our sky layer, which I shot this during the final hour before night because I wanted plenty of detail in this shot. And a good idea here is once you have an overall correction that you're happy with the image, duplicate your video layer and then mask out different portions of the video that might be more problematic, like for instance this car. Since the car is really reflective, it is totally breaking the illusion that it's nighttime, so I can single that out and pull the highlights out of this, which will help the rest of the shot. And now here's what we have so far. Of course, we're not done yet. After we thank our sponsor, we're gonna get into tying all of this together.
If you're a budding filmmaker, entrepreneur, or innovator, domain.com is the place to go when the next great idea hits you right in the face. I know you probably heard the list of available domain extensions is growing, but you now have the opportunity to name your site and build your brand in ways that were never before possible. Choose from a growing list of 400 plus domain name extensions like .com, .org, .design, and .club.
And .drugs.
That is not...
/ cocaine.
I think I've told you before, but you are a bad person.
Yeah, you have.
Okay.
For sure.
To show you some love, they're giving you 25% off their already affordable prices. Buy domain names, web hosting, email when you use coupon code FilmRiot. Check out, you get that 25% off. So when you think domain names, think domain.com.
And drugs.
Not at all drugs. And how long is this going to go on for? Logo.
Okay, so when we left off, we had this, which means it's time to bring in our actor and stitch everything together. So first thing I will do is pre-comp everything I have here and call it background. Next, I'll drop in my actor here. I have Brian on green screen, which I shot outside my front door to try to match the perspective as much as possible. Now I will key his layer using Primat as always. And again, if you want to learn more about keying with Primat, check out this episode here. And actually, we have another episode, which are 10 tips to better keying, which you can also check out right here. Now with Brian keyed out, I will scale and position my background to my liking. Somewhere in here looks good to me. Now I will color grade this layer to the style that I want, then add a final blur to it using fast blur so that Brian is our main focus. Next, I will color grade Brian to match, and we're almost done. The final thing I'm going to do is add atmosphere to this shot. So to do this, I'm going to use two assets from Action Essentials, Atmosphere 06 and Atmosphere 02. With those imported, I will double click on my background pre-comp, then I will add a layer of Atmosphere 06 between the two cloud layers, which again, I will copy paste my matte layer above this atmosphere layer, then set the atmosphere track matte to luma so that it will again only show in the sky area. For this one, I will keep the opacity at 100%. I will repeat this step, but this time putting it above all the cloud layers and setting the opacity to about 75. This is another way to add depth since it's giving that illusion of atmospheric fall off. Next, I will add Atmosphere 02, which I will place above my video layers. Then I'm going to scale, position, and mask to look as though the fog is on the street, and drop the opacity to somewhere in the 40s. And last thing we will do in this pre-comp is add another layer of Atmosphere 06, then scale and position it to fit the bottom half of the image above everything. Now we're going to move back into our main comp, and we're going to add one final layer of Atmosphere 06, which we will do all the same things to as we did in the last ones, but this one is going to go on top of Brian and cover everything, mixing it all together nicely. And now with all that in, we've added a lot of depth to the shot and made it all tie together nicely. And for the final step, I'm going to add an overall color grade, and we have a spooky looking shot for Halloween.
Logo. So that's it for today. Again, we got some awesome stuff coming, so keep a lookout for that, but I'll see you guys next week when I need potatoes to help me survive.